killed him.
The Western adaptation of an anime, manga, or a video game. A phrase that would more than likely make you groan in disappointment or actual fear. It's been a thing that's been going on for decades already. An IP becomes the hottest new thing in town, and once it breaches the so-called continental barriers and makes its way to the West, you have these companies like Netflix rushing in and fighting over who gets to convert the beloved product into a live-action or modern CG adaptation. The logic checks out. I mean, after all, anime provides such a unique and bold way of setting up its stories, characters, and tropes that make multiple series hot commodities outside Japan. They come with their own flair that, despite all the cultural barriers, a lot of them actually make it to the big time outside of Japan. Unfortunately, what happens most of the time is that these Western adaptations are met with disappointment or outright disdain, most especially from loyal fans of the source material. For some reason, the magic just seems to disappear when the Westerners get their hands on the said intellectual property. I recently watched Alita Battle Angel, and I think it's one of the adaptations done well. But we're not here for those rides, are we? We're here to crap on some hilariously awful adaptations like the Hollywood Tekken movie, which did get a sequel, by the way. We're here to trash talk Dragon Ball Evolution. We're here to laugh at Netflix's Death Note. I decided I'm going to do something a little bit different today. We've probably beaten a horse dead already when it comes to criticizing these adaptations, and I like to look at anime with a far less criticizing and condescending lens. So how about we step back a bit and look at these adaptations with a different angle? The question of the day is, where do these adaptations go wrong, and how can we partially fix them? Before we get started, the following piece will be about my subjective opinion and all, so feel free to agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. Hopefully I can give you a clearer picture of where Western adaptations go wrong, but of course I am but a YouTuber giving his opinion without access to the inner workings of Hollywood or Netflix. I encourage you to use the comment section to talk about some of the points that I bring up and tell me why you think I'm right or wrong. Are you ready? Let's get on with it then.
You sound a little crazy, but I have a death god.
When writing about this, I often use the Netflix Death Note as my frame of reference. Why? Well, it's one of the best anime out there for me, and saying that the live action didn't do the anime justice is an understatement. It's also one of the best specimens for us to dissect what Western adaptations do wrong, being a more modern, terrible adaptation, although I'd argue that Dragon Ball Evolution is way worse. Now, where did Death Note go wrong? Spoiler, it's not the so-called whitewashing. Having Caucasian actors in anime-based movies is the least of my concerns with Western adaptations. For me, the first and biggest problem when it comes to Western adaptations is that it seems that the creators just have this habit of half-adapting the source material. I was there when Death Note got announced, and much of the initial fan backlash focused on how Light and L weren't acting like their anime counterparts. Even before the movie was shown, people already made their mind up and decided to hate it. Then the movie came out and proved the detractors right. Now, the way I see it, characterization and this method of half-adaptation are the big issues in Death Note. I think this also plagues a lot of other Western adaptations like Tekken. To be fair, some of it is completely understandable. A 2-core anime is different from a 2-hour movie. Due to creative decisions or time constraints, plot elements often have to be altered and changed, but that often results in inconsistent plot development, a different looking world altogether, and a lack of some of the deeper themes that make these source materials stand out. All that combined in making these adaptations look like shells of themselves. Going back to Death Note, what fans, the original market, grew up to know as a battle of wits ended up being a cheap imitation of such. It's a watered down and, dare I say, Americanized version of it with a coming-of-age thing strapped to it. To make matters worse, the climax of the film involved a literal car chase with guns, one that transitioned into an overblown Ferris wheel explosion scene with unintentionally funny acting. That's when you know you're watching a Western adaptation. When you see a car chase as a climax to a battle of mental gymnastics, you'd expect some over-the-top climax like this from something like Fast and Furious, not Death Note. To be fair, the movie does have its defenders, and they urge people to enjoy it as an original work, not as an adaptation of the series. There, someone said it for me. In my opinion, the answer is that simple. How about these Western adaptations craft an entirely new story altogether? No, I don't mean in the way that around half of them are doing so already. What I mean is that if they really refuse to do a one-to-one adaptation, then just do away with the source material characters altogether and simply create their own cast while capturing the correct key elements of the series. Look at it this way. a reason why anime fans who watch Netflix's Death Note simply can't accept Light Turner for who he is, because despite everyone's best efforts, Turner still stuck out as an attempted equivalent of Light Yagami. Fans couldn't help comparing the two, and this will simply magnify their disappointment when they see their favourite god-complex megalomaniac become, well, whatever Turner is. The movie does have an L that's supposed to be an original character, one that's far more emotional and impulsive. However, he still retains the same name and some mannerisms of the original L. Just look at how he sits. This is what I meant when I'm saying half adaptation.
The individual known as Kita, as I'm sure you're aware, has taken credit for over 400 deaths.
Oh, shit.
While we don't know how he kills his victims, we do know how he chooses.
You know, I've been focusing heavily on a movie that's been out there for 3 years, but if you take your trip down memory lane, you'd see that this can be the case for a lot of other Western adaptations too. I reiterate that if the writers don't intend to fully adapt the source material, they should go all the way. Using Death Note as the example again, how about scrapping Light, L and Misa altogether and replacing them with a completely new set of characters? Call the movie Death Note Upheaval or something like that, and have it take place years after the original battle between Light and L. I believe Japan already did something of the sort as a sequel, so why not have the Western writers do something like that as well? I believe that they can come up with a new story that can capture the essence of Death Note without involving Light and L. All they have to do is to retain the presence of the Death Note, write a plot exploring different angles of having that kind of power in your hands and the moral consequences of such, and create a well-placed plot with a good amount of conflict. Look, even Ryuk can stay. Think of it this way, it's completely plausible for a demon bound by the Death Note to pop up in America in the future after being thoroughly entertained with his first attempt at dropping the notebook in Japan. Would it be too off-character for the trickster Shinigami to want to try watching another show unfold and making a mess out of America instead? Will the get a front row seat to a show be as enjoyable as the one in Japan if he decided to shift locations? Also, at least, if this original movie sucked, people can simply go, man, this movie sucks, instead of going, oh my god, look how they murdered Light's character. Same negative feedback, but quite different in terms of intensity, and we know that anime and video game fans can be some of the harshest critics out there. YouTube alone should prove that. That harshness seems doubled when the element of comparison is there. Going full original will not wipe out the comparisons, but I think that it can soften the blow a little bit by doing away with a large part of the false advertising. Instead of slapping the name of an IP onto a half original movie and attempting to ride the popularity, just be honest with the marketing and come up with an admitted spin-off or something like that. Hollywood just likes to attempt some kind of in-between with adapting things. I think that this habit is a big part of what causes these adaptations to be magnets for criticism and backlash. Mind you, not being loyal to the source material isn't the only problem these adaptations have, but it certainly is a big one. Due to the half adaptation thing, fans find it hard to accept the film as a completely original work, if that's what it's intended to be, and turn to criticizing wrong characterizations or altered personalities. Should the filmmakers actually erase all traces of the original source while retaining key themes and elements that are essential in the series and make it so attractive? Perhaps they can be spared some of that backlash that comes from knee-jerk reactions about not staying loyal to the source material. Perhaps if they become more honest in their intentions of not adapting the source material, not just in word but also in kind, then maybe fan expectations can be preemptively set to be more accepting of what the movie throws at them when it's all said and done. Now that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you can share some of your insights on why my suggestions would or wouldn't work, I'd love to hear from you about it. If you can also find some other points of contention that make Western adaptations mostly terrible, feel free to share your knowledge also, because I'd love to learn new things from you as well. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you have a great day ahead of you.